Okay, let's unpack this. Welcome to another deep dive. Today, we are taking a massive stack of articles, field notes, and dispatches from the Lifestyle and Culture blog, Celebrate, Socialize, and Explore.
Yes.
And our mission today is to really dissect the anatomy of modern celebration. Cultural legacy, consumer identity, specifically right now in the summer of 2026.
Right, because it is shifting so quickly.
Totally. For most of the 20th century and honestly well into the early 2000s, the absolute gold standard for going out was predictability.
Oh, absolutely.
Think about the classic movie theater model, right? You buy your ticket, you walk into this room with like 200 complete strangers, the lights go down, and every single person in that room is handed the exact same sensory experience.
The exact same one.
Right. You are all watching the same Hollywood blockbuster. You're sitting in the same uniform velvet chairs, eating the same heavily salted, heavily buttered popcorn. It was this massive, shared, monolithic experience.
It was mass consumption in its purest form, really.
Yeah, and it was comfortable, it was clean, but most importantly, it was incredibly scalable.
Well, and the psychology behind that monolith was fascinating because for a long time, cultural participation just meant doing what everyone else was doing at the exact same time. The value of the experience was entirely tied to its universality. I mean, if you saw the big summer blockbuster, you could talk about it at the water cooler the next day. The monolith was basically the connective tissue of society.
Exactly. But we are looking at a landscape today where that old movie theater model, that one-size-fits-all monolith, has just entirely fractured.
Completely shattered.
Right. From how we consume live music to how we honor our ancestral roots to the hyper-specific ways we're choosing to, eat, drink, travel.
What's fascinating here is the sheer duality of the modern consumer. Because when you look at the data and the events outlined in these sources, you see a society that is violently rejecting the generic.
Yeah, violently is a good word for it.
People are demanding these hyper-specific, deeply intentional experiences. But the paradox is they are demanding loud, rebellious disruption and quiet, patient, almost sacred tradition at the exact same time.
Right, it's like we want the absolute cutting-edge future, but we also want to, touch the deeply anchored past. And we refuse to compromise on either end of the spectrum.
No compromise at all.
So for you listening, whether you are trying to understand where consumer culture is heading for your own business, or you just kind of want to understand why your own weekend plans look the way they do this deep dive, is going to give you that exact lens.
It really will.
Because by the end of our conversation today, you will understand the underlying mechanics of everything from, the historical weight of Afro-Cuban percussion to the physics of underground Korean indie rock.
Yes.
All the way to the aggressive branding of plant-based fast food and the molecular chemistry of a $4,100 bottle of tequila.
Which is just wild to think about. But we are ultimately talking about how people build a mosaic of their own identity. The choices you make about where to stand on a Saturday night, what you put in your glass, how you cross an ocean. These aren't just logistical decisions anymore. They are highly calculated declarations of who you are.
Yeah, it's identity building.
Yeah.
So let's look at how that plays out in public spaces, because the way we interact with our cities is changing dramatically.
Oh, massive.
I want you to picture the Josie Robertson Plaza at Lincoln Center in New York City. For decades, the psychological architecture of Lincoln Center has been one of hushed reverence.
Very strict. European classical music, opera, velvet ropes.
Exactly. A very specific, quiet etiquette. But on Saturday, July 11th, 2026, from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., that plaza is undergoing this radical physical transformation. It's basically becoming a living, breathing drumbeat.
We were talking about Afro-Carnival.
Afro-Carnival, which is presented by the Caribbean Cultural Center African Diaspora Institute, widely known as CCKD.
They're doing this in partnership with Lincoln Center's Summer for the City series. And what is structurally happening here is just incredible. It's the introduction of rhythms, the kinetic movement, the memory of Brazil and Trinidad and Tobago directly onto the dance floor at Lincoln Center.
It's totally free. It's open to the public. But to call it like a summer concert fundamentally misunderstands what's going on.
It completely misses the point. It is a profound act of cultural reclamation.
So the centerpiece of this entire evening is a tribute to Calypso Rose. Now, if you aren't familiar with the mechanics of Calypso music, it is deeply rooted in storytelling, social commentary, and traditionally a very patriarchal structure of boasting and competition.
Very male-dominated.
Yeah. But Calypso Rose, who was born in Tobago and started singing at, 15, She didn't just participate in this genre, she completely re-engineered its vocabulary.
She caused a structural earthquake in the Caribbean music industry. To really understand the magnitude of this, you have to look at the institutional naming conventions.
Oh, this is the best part.
Right. Before 1978, the absolute pinnacle of this music was the National Calypso Competition in Trinidad and Tobago. And it was officially titled the National Calypso King Competition.
The King Competition.
Right. The title itself was a locked door. It mathematically excluded women from the highest echelon of the art form.
And then Calypso Rose just walks onto that stage in 1978. And she doesn't just compete, she dominates.
She wins the entire thing.
Her talent was so undeniable, her stage presence was so overwhelming that the institution literally had to rewrite its own dictionary. They were forced to change the name from the Calypso King Competition to the Calypso Monarch Competition.
She forced structural change simply by refusing to be ignored. It's brilliant.
Yeah, and today she holds more honors and medals than any other living Calypsonian. And the reason this Afro-Carnival tribute is so vital is because Carnival, by its very nature, isn't a passive spectator sport.
No, it operates on a completely different psychological level than a traditional concert. It relies on a completely permeable boundary between the performer and the audience.
Right, you don't just watch Carnival.
No, you are absorbed by it. The performances by Silvana Magda and Viva Brazil, Something Positive, 2J and Friends, they are all designed to pull the audience directly into the rhythm.
But looking at the source material, this relationship between CC Cadiz and Lincoln Center, this isn't some new phenomenon just for 2026. This isn't a trendy pop-up.
Not at all.
There's a deep architectural memory at work here.
Yes, and if we connect this to the bigger picture, the concept of institutional memory is really what elevates this event, because the source material explicitly describes this gathering as freedom language.
Wow.
Yeah, 2026 marks the 50th anniversary of CC. And this partnership with Lincoln Center actually dates all the way back to September 1979 with the first Caribbean Expressions Festival.
That is wild.
Over the decades, they have collaborated on more than 20 massive concerts, film screenings, festivals. It's a huge legacy.
I was looking at the historical timeline provided in the articles, and it is just staggering. In 1984, they hosted the Carnival in New York series, which brought together groups from Brazil, the Dominican Republic, Cuba, Trinidad and Tobago, Jamaica, Puerto Rico, Haiti, just this massive convergence in Damrosch Park.
Yeah.
And then you hit 1989, the Uprise and Shine Stay in School rallies.
Oh, that lineup.
If you look at that 1989 lineup, it reads like the Mount Rushmore of early hip-hop.
Mm-hmm.
You had Queen Latifah, The Roots, A Tribe Called Quest, MC Lyte, all performing right there at Lincoln Center.
Right, and Melody Capote, who is the current executive director of CC, notes how this anniversary specifically honors that history, particularly the work of the late Leonard Depar.
Right.
He was instrumental in breaking down those velvet ropes and diversifying Lincoln Center's programming. When Afro-Carnival brings these Trinidadian and Brazilian traditions to the plaza today, it is functioning as a living archive.
A living archive. I love that.
It proves that Carnival is not just feathers and costumes, you know. It is the sociology of community gathering. It is survival turned into song.
And that concept of the living archive is made literal at the event because they are hosting a community archiving lab for culture and justice pop-up right there on the plaza.
Right, on site.
Yeah, they are bringing out archival materials from this 47-year institutional relationship, including a really rare video of a 1994 performance by Calypso Rose herself.
It creates this beautiful temporal loop, doesn't it? You have the history playing on screen while the modern iteration dances on the pavement right in front of it.
Yeah.
It forces the audience to interact with history not as something dusty in a museum, but as something actively shaping their present reality. However, institutional archiving using plazas and plaques and video screens is only one mechanism for preserving culture. The sources provide another much more intimate look at how history survives.
Oh, definitely.
It's the transition from a public organization preserving a genre to a single son carrying the physical and emotional weight of his father's legacy.
And that brings us to this incredible audio interview from the Celebrate Socialize Explore platform. It's featured in their Flashback Friday series. This is a November 2025 conversation between managing editor Daniel Crespo, who writes under the name El Indio Gordo, and Tito Puente Jr.
Yes, right before his show.
Exactly. The interview took place just before Tito Jr. played a show at the Bristol Riverside Theater in Pennsylvania.
And Daniel Crespo's perspective here is absolutely vital to the mechanics of the interview. Crespo is a Puerto Rican and Taíno man, and he actually serves as a tribal guide for the Higuayago Caribeña Taíno tribe.
Right.
Because of that specific cultural lens, he doesn't just ask Tito Puente Jr. standard PR questions about, ticket sales or tour dates. He understands the ancestral weight of the drum.
Yeah, he really gets it.
He approaches the conversation as a dialogue about bloodlines, about identity, and the existential duty of preserving Afro-Cuban percussion.
And Tito Puente Jr. is standing at the exact intersection of all those heavy concepts. I mean, he is literally carrying the name of the most legendary figure in Latin jazz, Tito Puente, while actively trying to maintain his own pulse as an artist.
Exactly.
He talks in the interview about how his shows are an educational mechanism, a way to introduce a younger demographic to the foundational sounds that built modern Latin music. But wait, though. Let's look at the psychology of that for a second.
Okay.
Because if I'm Tito Puente Jr., I have to be completely exhausted on some level, right?
Yeah.
Every time he picks up the timbales, people aren't just listening to him. They are overlaying the ghost of his father on top of his performance.
Constantly comparing them.
Right. So is carrying the torch of a legend like Tito Puente or Celia Cruz or Machito a superpower? Or is it a heavy burden that limits a younger artist's own evolution?
That is the big question. It raises an important question about the burden of inheritance. And Tito Jr.'s psychological framework for handling it is incredibly resilient. He doesn't view his father's catalog as a fragile museum piece that he has to replicate perfectly note for note, terrified of making a mistake.
Right.
He views legacy as a language. If you inherit a language, you don't just repeat the exact sentences your parents said.
Right.
Right.
Oh, that's a great point.
You use their vocabulary to have your own new conversations. He talks extensively about the mechanics of mentorship, a lesson he learned directly from his father, the necessity of surrounding yourself with elite, hungry musicians who push the sound forward.
Which totally explains one of the most jarring but brilliant reveals in the interview. Tito Puente Jr., the global ambassador for Afro-Cuban jazz and salsa, admits to having a deep, abiding love for classic heavy metal.
I love that detail. It's a perfect psychological release valve for him. It proves he isn't just a carbon copy, Yeah. He has his own diverse sonic inputs, his own teenage rebellions, his own musical geometry. And he is applying his own ambition to his father's work. For example, he discusses the logistical and artistic mountain of planning a full symphonic tribute album for his father's catalog.
Right, taking it to the symphony.
Exactly. He is taking the street-level heat of Afro-Cuban percussion and marrying it to the sweeping architecture of a classical symphony. That isn't just archiving, that is evolution.
And he draws a direct line from that evolution to what is happening at the very top of the global pop charts today. He talks about the massive, undeniable influence of modern artists like Bad Bunny.
Right.
Bad Bunny is selling out global stadiums, but Tito Jr. points out that if you strip away the modern production, the absolute bedrock of that music was poured by the pioneers.
The syncopation, the specific rhythmic patterns, the clave, it's all structural DNA.
Yes.
Tito Rodriguez, Eddie Palmieri, Arturo Sandoval, Nestor Torres, Carlos Santana, Tito Puente. Bad Bunny and his contemporaries are building skyscrapers on the foundation those men poured.
Yeah, that's a great way to picture it.
Tito Jr. recognizes that legacy isn't about forcing the youth to listen to old records. It's about showing them that the music they already love is fluent in the language of their ancestors.
That idea of fluency and connection is such a powerful through line here, because we have this vivid picture of how we celebrate legacy on a massive scale, right? The sprawling kinetic energy of Africa Naval on a New York City plaza and the loud driving percussion of Tito Puente Jr. connecting generations.
Yeah.
But that craving for connection doesn't always manifest as a massive, loud gathering. Sometimes the monolith isn't shattered by volume. It's shattered by silence and extreme proximity.
And this is a crucial pivot in modern consumer psychology. In a world that is hyper-digital, infinitely scalable, and often overwhelmingly loud, sensory overload has basically become our baseline condition.
For sure.
Consequently, we are seeing a rising demographic that equates luxury and connection not with stadium-sized spectacle, but with acoustic vulnerability. They want to be close enough to hear the artist breathe. They want the friction of a small room.
Which brings us to the mechanics of K-Music Night 2026.
Yes.
This is running from August 13th through the 16th at the Korean Cultural Center, New York, co-presented with the Korea Creative Content Agency for America 250. And the single detail that completely recontextualizes this entire event is the venue architecture.
It really is.
They are hosting this in a theater in Midtown Manhattan that holds a maximum capacity of 172 seats.
Stop and think about the spatial math of that for a second. You are in a city of over 8 million people,
Right.
and you are putting internationally recognized artists in a room that held 172 bodies. That is hyper-intimacy. It fundamentally alters the physics of the sound and the emotional state of the audience.
It's billed as a close-up listening room. And it is so exclusive you have to enter a ticket lottery just for the chance to sit in one of those seats.
Yeah, a lot of...
If the global juggernaut of K-pop, the stadium tours, the synchronized light sticks, the massive pyrotechnics, if that operates like a Marvel blockbuster, then K-Music Night is the equivalent of an underground indie film festival where you're sitting in a folding chair having a conversation with the director.
Exactly. And that programming choice is highly strategic. K-pop has successfully acted as a cultural ambassador, introducing Korean aesthetics to millions globally. But Korean music is not a monolith.
No.
The KCCNY is deliberately utilizing this tiny space to showcase the quieter, more intricate ecosystems of Korean music. They are programming acoustic, soul, R&B, and indie rock. As the source material beautifully articulates, the songs presented here function differently. They feel like a journal entry, a late-night phone call, or a memory you did not know you were carrying.
Wow. And when you look at the specific artists they programmed, you see exactly how that vulnerability plays out. Take John Park, for example.
Oh, yes.
His career trajectory is a masterclass in the complexity of the diaspora. He actually started in the U.S., making it as a top 20 finalist on American Idol Season 9.
Right, remember that.
Then he travels to Korea, builds this massive, deeply respected career synthesizing American R&B and soul with Korean pop sensibilities. And now he is returning to the U.S. for this America 250 celebration. His literal physical journey mirrors the cultural exchange happening in his music.
It does. And then you transition to OK Dial, a duo made up of Kim Yoon-ju and Park Sejin. Their lyrical mechanism is built entirely on what the article calls gentle honesty.
Gentle honesty, I like that.
In a culture both in the U.S. and Korea, honestly, that often prioritizes relentless hustle and flawless presentation, Okididal writes songs about everyday fatigue, quiet struggles, soft encouragement.
Yeah.
In a 172-seat room, that doesn't sound like a performance. It sounds like a friend sitting on your couch telling you it's going to be okay.
You also have Yozo, who brings a completely different textural element. She is a singer-songwriter, but she is also an independent bookstore owner.
Oh, bookstore owner, yeah.
Her art exists in this delicate membrane between literature and melody. Her songs are described as highly introspective, proving that you don't need a heavy bass drop to command a room's attention.
Not at all. And finally, Gina, representing the newest generation. She is a soul-born, LA-based indie rock artist whose work is already gaining traction on platforms like Spotify Fresh Finds. She uses guitar-driven emotion to explore themes of ambition and the search for belonging. When you place these 4 distinct narrative voices in a tiny, lottery-only theater in the middle of New York City, a city literally defined by immigrant hustle and overwhelming noise, you are creating a sanctuary.
Yeah, total escape.
It's an exercise in forcing the audience to put down their phones, sit in the quiet, and actually listen to the cultural exchange happening in real time.
But here's where it gets really interesting, because that deep psychological need to escape the predictable, massive monoliths, to find an irreplicable, hyperspecific experience that doesn't only happen in quiet acoustic theaters.
No, it doesn't.
You can achieve that exact same feeling of rarity in a room that is incredibly loud, sweaty, and completely chaotic.
If we connect this to the bigger picture, the desire for acoustic intimacy at the Korean Cultural Center shares an exact psychological root with an event happening across the river in Brooklyn on July 11th.
Right.
Which, incredibly, is the exact same night as Afro Carnival. But at the Brooklyn Ball, connection isn't achieved through whispered vulnerability. It is achieved through the dopamine rush of unscripted, highly energized musical unpredictability.
We're talking about Barely Dead. This is 5-piece Grateful Dead tribute band out of Boston that has basically organically grown into a national touring phenomenon.
They really have.
They're playing the Brooklyn Bowl to celebrate the venue's 17th birthday, and they're doing a limited run of $17 tickets. But to call them a tribute band almost feels like a disservice to the mechanics of what they actually do on stage.
It really is. A standard tribute band operates on the premise of perfect replication. Their goal is to make you close your eyes and believe you are listening to the original album.
Note for note.
Exactly. Barely Dead operates on the jam band ethos, which is the exact opposite of replication. It is built entirely on elite musicianship and live show spontaneity.
The source notes that they have a working repertoire of more than 250 songs, They aren't just playing the greatest hits. They are digging into rare B-sides, strange covers, and these massive 20-minute instrumental tangents.
Yeah.
The core promise Barely Dead makes to their audience is that no two shows will ever be the same.
And that promise of unpredictability is the ultimate currency for the 2026 consumer.
The ultimate currency.
Think about the architecture of our daily lives right now. Algorithms dictate our social media feeds, our streaming platforms suggest exactly what we should watch next, our GPS tells us the exact route to take. Our lives are heavily scripted by data.
Very predictable.
So when a consumer steps out for the night, whether they are sitting in a 172-seat theater for K-Music Night or dancing to a 20-minute improvised guitar solo at the Brooklyn Bowl, they are paying for the luxury of the unknown. They want an irreplicable you-had-to-be-there moment.
They want to know that the specific combination of notes played tonight will vanish into the air and never exist in that exact sequence again.
Exactly.
It is the ultimate rejection of the mass-produced movie theater. You're not just a consumer of the art. Your energy in the room is actively shaping the improvisation.
Exactly. The audience basically becomes a variable in the equation.
So we have thoroughly dissected the mechanics of how we listen, how we dance, and how we gather in 2026. But that craving for an unscripted, hyper-curated experience doesn't stop at the concert hall doors.
Oh, no.
It is entirely reshaping what we expect on our dinner plates and in our glasses. The new rules of consumption, food, and drink are polarizing along the exact same fault lines as our music. We are seeing the rise of loud, rebellious, fast-paced culinary disruption on one end and incredibly quiet, slow, mindful luxury on the other.
Because what we ingest has become a primary identifier. You are not just buying calories or hydration anymore. You are adopting the attitude, the politics, and the social posturing of the brands you align with.
Let's start with the loud end of the spectrum, because Slutty Vegan is officially bringing its chaos to Ohio.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, they're expanding into Columbus and Cleveland. Now, if you are not familiar with the sociological phenomenon that is Slutty Vegan, this is a plant-based burger brand founded in Atlanta in 2018 by Pinky Cole Hayes.
Right. Started as a food truck?
Yes, a food truck with lines literally wrapped around the block. And it has exploded into this national fast casual empire.
Yeah.
The source material uses a phrase to describe their vibe that I absolutely love. They call it plant-based swagger.
Plant-based swagger. And to understand why Slutty Vegan works so well, you have to look at the historical marketing of veganism.
Okay, let's look at that.
For decades, the entire aesthetic of vegan food was rooted in austerity. It was marketed as polite, clean, health-conscious, deeply serious. It was always about what you were giving up for the sake of ethics or your waistline.
Right.
Pinky Cole Hayes looked at that aesthetic framework and completely demolished it.
She realized that people still wanted the dopamine hit of eating junk food. They just wanted it made of plants.
Exactly.
She grabbed a megaphone and built a brand on pure indulgence. Slutty Vegan uses these highly provocative, playful names for their burgers. They use full volume, borderline aggressive hospitality when you walk in the door.
Very loud.
The food is heavy, it's covered in special sauce, it's messy. They aren't whispering apologies from the corner of a health food store. They are throwing a block party.
And this Ohio expansion reveals their scaling strategy, which is smart. They are partnering with Soul Republic Hospitality Group, which is led by Akin Africa.
Right.
Africa's group already operates 7 brands and a dozen locations, which means they possess the operational logistics to scale culture without losing its edge. Because Slutty Vegan is not fundamentally in the business of selling burgers, they are in the business of selling energy.
Exactly.
They are selling a community experience that is so vibrant, consumers are bragging about it on social media before they even reach the front of the line.
It is the absolute pinnacle of founder-led cultural branding. Pinky Cole Hayes isn't some faceless CEO hiding in a corporate boardroom. She is a best-selling author, she is a massive philanthropist, and as the article highlights, she is now a cast member on Bravo's The Real Housewives of Atlanta Season 17.
I saw that.
Right. She is weaponizing reality television and her own personal celebrity to inject her business savvy directly into the mainstream cultural bloodstream. The brand is completely inseparable from her confidence.
It is consumption as a loud, unapologetic statement. But this is where the paradox of the 2026 consumer comes into sharp focus.
How so?
Because while plant-based food is moving toward indulgence, volume, and heaviness, our drinking culture is moving in the exact opposite direction. It is becoming increasingly light, quiet, and hyper-mindful.
Think about your own weekend plans. If you were going out, are you looking for a chaotic, buzzy energy, or are you looking for a moment to just decompress and sit in relative peace? Because while people are lining up for messy vegan burgers, they are pairing their evenings with something like Naked Life Italian Spritz.
Right.
This is Australia's #1 non-alcoholic cocktail brand. And the big news in the sources is that they are officially launching in the U.S., hitting Amazon and Total Wine shelves.
The mindful drinking movement has crossed a major psychological threshold here. It used to be a punitive category.
Totally.
If you weren't drinking alcohol, you were relegated to a sugary soda or plain water. You were visibly excluded from the adult ritual of the toast. But today, zero-proof beverages have matured into an elevated, premium lifestyle choice.
Yeah.
Choosing not to drink ethanol is no longer a compromise. It's a flex of wellness and intentionality.
Here's where it gets really interesting, though. The chemical engineering behind Naked Life is fascinating. The stats of this Italian spritz are wild. It has 0 grams of sugar and only 5 calories.
5 calories.
But it's not just a flavored seltzer. They use a process of steam distilling botanicals. They extract the essential oils and flavors from bright bitter orange and blend it with soft herbal and floral notes. They are mathematically reverse engineering the flavor profile of a classic Italian aperitivo.
They are targeting the golden hour aesthetic. Stephanie Clanfield, who is the senior marketing manager at Molson Coors, points out a critical mechanism in the source material summer socialization is inherently built around the ritual of the glass.
It is.
People want the sensory experience, the condensation on the glass, the clinking of the ice, the complex bitter flavor profile that signals an adult beverage, the sunset toasts. They just want all of that without the physiological hangover or the disruption to their wellness goals the next morning.
And Naked Life has the hardware to prove their chemistry works. They've pulled major awards at both this S&P Awards and the Miami Global Spirits Awards, which proves the non-alc space has finally solved its biggest historical hurdle. It actually tastes complex.
It actually tastes good.
Yeah. It's a beautifully curated tiny vacation in a can for like $9.99 a 4-pack.
But if we want to truly understand the extremes of modern consumption, we have to contrast that accessible, everyday zero-proof spritz with the final beverage in our stack of sources.
Oh, this one is wild.
Because if Naked Life represents light, quick, modern mindfulness, Código 1530 represents deep, heavy, ancestral patience.
We are talking about the absolute peak of connoisseurship here. The Código 1530 15-year extra añejo tequila. This is a hyper-limited luxury release. There are only 350 bottles available in the entire world. And to understand the gravity of this liquid, you really have to look at the price point.
It is priced at $4,100 a bottle.
$4,100 for a single bottle of tequila.
Right. And to justify that economic leap, you have to understand the molecular chemistry of time. This specific expression is aged for 15 years in French white oak Cabernet barrels, and then it is finished for 6 additional months in French cognac casks. In the world of agave spirits, 15 years is a geological epoch.
Right, because agave isn't like whiskey. Daniel Crespo, who wrote this article as well, by the way, points out a known danger in tequila distillation. If you leave tequila in a barrel for too long, the wood tannins completely swallow the spirit.
Exactly, it ruins it.
It just tastes like liquid oak, and you lose the bright, earthy identity of the agave plant.
Yes, and that is where the mechanical genius of the double barrel process comes in. The French white oak that previously held Cabernet imparts a very specific, tight tannin structure and a deep red amber color. But by transferring it to French cognac casks for the final 6 months, they are rounding out the harsh edges. The Cognac wood introduces softer, richer ester compounds that protect the agave's natural identity while building extraordinary complexity.
Crespo's writing about this process is just so evocative. He brings his Caribbean lens to Jalisco, Mexico, noting how the land literally speaks through the ritual.
It's beautiful.
The agave plant absorbs the terroir of the soil for years before it's even harvested. When you handle it with this much respect, pouring a glass isn't just a drink. It's a conversation between the soil, the fire of distillation, the wood of the barrel, and a decade and a half of time.
Yeah.
The tasting notes read like a novel toasted oak, buttery maple, dark cacao, a clean mineral edge, dry plum, cinnamon, and a lingering finish of tobacco.
It is engineered as a total luxury ecosystem. The liquid is housed in a handcrafted crystal decanter, sealed with a gold-plated stopper presented in a bespoke wooden case. And it's accompanied by specialized crystal tasting glasses and a certificate of authenticity.
Of course.
Federico Hahn, the co-founder of Código, explicitly calls it a symbol of patience.
And that contrast is staggering.
Yeah.
Think about this dichotomy. On one hand, you have Pinky Colhays and Slutty Vegan screaming through a megaphone, using reality TV and massive volume to build a community around plant-based fast food. Disruption through sheer noise.
Right.
With one brand screaming through a megaphone to sell vegan burgers, and another saying the best luxury is never loud to sell a $4,000 tequila. What does this tell us about how people signal their status in 2026?
It proves that status is no longer a singular metric. In previous decades, status was almost entirely financial. Who could afford the most expensive, universally recognized item?
Rolex, the sports car.
Exactly. Today, status is about the curation of a highly specific identity. If you are eating at Slutty Vegan, you are signaling to the world that you are culturally dialed in, you support innovative founder-led disruption, and you aren't afraid to be loud.
Yeah.
If you were drinking Naked Life, you are signaling that you possess the discipline to prioritize mindfulness and long-term health over short-term intoxication. And if you are sipping a $4,100 Código Extra Añejo, you are signaling that you are a connoisseur who values extreme craftsmanship, heritage, and the luxury of patience over immediate gratification.
You're building a mosaic. A consumer might eat a messy vegan burger for lunch, drink a zero-proof spritz at a sunset happy hour, and then end the night silently sipping a 15-year-old tequila by the fire. We're completely comfortable jumping between these hyper-specific, fragmented identities.
And this realization leads to a massive logistical problem.
What's that?
If the modern consumer demands all of these highly curated, wildly different niches, intimate acoustic music, loud, disruptive food, quiet, mindful drinks, unscripted, chaotic entertainment, where do they go for vacation? How do you provide a hyper-specific, fragmented experience to someone who basically wants everything?
Oh, you put it on a boat.
Yes.
The travel industry, and specifically the cruise industry, has been watching this psychological shift happen, and they're radically re-architecting their vessels to meet the demand.
They have to. This raises an important question about scale, because the old monolith of the mega cruise, the generic sun deck, the massive uninspired buffet line, the one-size-fits-all lounge act, is completely unacceptable to a consumer who is used to navigating the intricate niches of a major city. They want urban curation at sea.
Which brings us to the Celebrity Reflection. This is a highly regarded Solstice Series ship from Celebrity Cruises. It sails year-round out of Fort Lauderdale, running Caribbean itineraries to places like Key West, the Bahamas, Aruba, and Grand Cayman.
Great routes.
But the major news is that by March 2027, the ship is emerging from a massive bow-to-stern structural revamp. They are aggressively installing 13 entirely new experiences.
This is a masterclass in spatial psychology. They are not just updating the carpets, they are physically breaking down the massive scale of the ship into what function as micro-neighborhoods.
Right.
By zoning the ship into highly distinct atmospheric areas, they eliminate the psychological friction of feeling trapped on a vessel with 3,000 other people.
Let's break down how that choice architecture actually looks. If you are on the top deck during the day, the heartbeat of the ship is the newly reimagined Celebrity Pool Club. They've altered the physical landscape with plush daybeds, new architectural shade structures, and a very specific, relaxed tropical aesthetic. But more importantly, they've added 2 new poolside dining concepts that perfectly mirror the casual, high-quality street food trend we see on land.
They are bringing the food directly to the lounging area. You have the Orange Peel Bar and Grill, which is executing smash burgers and frozen cocktails right to your chair. And right next to it, Tacos del Sol, which is an open-air stand focused on Mexican-inspired flavors with build-your-own options. It's casual, but the quality of the ingredients elevates it past standard pool food.
But the real psychological shift happens when the sun goes down. They are introducing the Grand Plaza, which is an architectural concept pulled from their newer Edge series ships.
Oh, the Grand Plaza is stunning.
This is a massive 3-story central venue. It's anchored by a martini bar and this enormous suspended chandelier that actually has its own choreographed LED light shows.
Right.
The space is constantly shifting its energy with live music and performances throughout the day and night. It basically acts as the central town square of the ship.
And branching off from that town square, you have highly specialized entertainment venues. If you want high-energy, interactive chaos, they built the Boulevard Lounge. It's a 125-seat space dedicated to dueling pianos and karaoke, supported by the Boulevard Bar serving handcrafted cocktails.
And if you want the exact opposite of karaoke, if you want dark woods, quiet conversation, and exclusivity, you walk into the parlor.
The parlor is so different.
It's designed like a hidden speakeasy or a classic club. They have billiards, darts, an incredible roster of award-winning whiskeys, craft cocktails, and surprisingly, these massive over-the-top milkshakes. It's a completely different emotional temperature than the Boulevard Lounge, just steps away.
This raises an important question about nautical engineering, though. How do you provide genuine outdoor tranquility on a massive machine made of steel?
Yeah.
Celebrity's answer is the Sunset Park on the top deck. They are structurally converting the aft of the ship into an open-air park. During the day, guests can participate in guided meditation or lawn games. At night, it transitions into an outdoor movie theater.
Oh, wow.
They have installed private reservable cabanas with dedicated attendants, creating a micro-sanctuary. It's supported by the Sunset Park Cafe for bistro-style breakfasts and the Sunset Bar for evening cocktails.
It really is just a floating city of distinct neighborhoods. And the fine dining completely aligns with that urban curated feel. They're bringing in Trattoria Rossa, which focuses on Roman cuisine.
Yeah.
We are talking house-made pastas and high-touch tableside preparation.
Yeah.
They've added the fine-cut steakhouse, offering 30-day dry-aged steaks and premium seafood. But the crown jewel of this revamp, in my opinion, is Bora.
Oh, Bora is going to be amazing.
It's a Mediterranean-inspired rooftop venue. During the day, it operates as this breezy, lively brunch spot. But at night, the lighting drops, the music shifts, and it becomes a chef-led experience with tableside finishing and shareable plates, all set against panoramic ocean views.
The celebrity reflection is the ultimate synthesis of everything we have analyzed in these sources. The cruise line has looked at the consumer who wants the intimacy of a 172-seat acoustic show, the loud, messy joy of a plant-based burger, the unscripted chaos of a jam band, and the quiet luxury of a 15-year-old spirit, and they have built a physical vessel to hold all of those contradictory desires. They have realized that in 2026, absolute convenience cannot come at the cost of deep curation.
Convenience cannot come at the cost of curation. That is the definitive thesis of this entire deep dive. Look at the incredible map of human behavior we've charted today. We started on the concrete of Lincoln Center, feeling the historical, ancestral drumbeats of Afro-Carnival.
Yes.
We watched Calypso Rose rewrite the dictionary of an entire genre, and we traced the heavy, living heartbeat of Afro-Cuban jazz as Tito Puente Jr. refuses to let his father's language fade into silence.
We analyzed the absolute rejection of the predictable stadium monolith. We saw how audiences are seeking connection in the extreme intimacy of a 172-seat theater for K-Music night, sitting in the quiet with artists like John Park and OKDL. And we saw how that same craving for rarity drives people to the sweaty, improvisational dance floor of the Brooklyn Bowl, demanding that Barely Dead play a sequence of notes that will never exist again.
We saw how our palates have become the ultimate loudspeakers for our politics and personalities. From the joyful, high-volume disruption of Pinky Cole Hayes expanding the slutty vegan empire into Ohio, to the quiet, zero-proof elegance of Naked Life Italian Spritz, mastering the chemistry of the golden hour.
Right.
All the way to the exquisite molecular patience of a $4,100 bottle of Código 1530 tequila resting in French cognac casks.
And finally, we saw how the travel industry is physically restructuring its architecture to capture this fragmented consumer. The celebrity reflection breaking down the megaship monolith into hyper-curated, psychologically distinct micro-neighborhoods, proving that our culture is desperate for genuine, tailored connection in every single space we inhabit.
Which brings us to the end of our dive. We always promise that you will leave this conversation with something to chew on, something to challenge the way you move through the world.
Exactly.
So what does this all mean for you? We have established today that every single aspect or modern socialization, the music you stream, the food you order, the drinks you pour, the vacations you book, can be meticulously curated to match your exact identity, your dietary requirements, and your aesthetic preferences.
We possess the technology and the market options to filter our reality perfectly.
But I want you to think about the danger inherent in that perfection. If our celebrations, our travel itineraries, our meals, and our playlists are flawlessly engineered to keep us safely inside our own established comfort zones, what happens to the art of accidental discovery?
That's a great point.
If you know exactly what the room will sound like, what the food will taste like, and who will be sitting next to you before you even walk out your front door, are you systematically curating the surprise out of your own life?
The monolith of the past was flawed, definitely, but it occasionally forced us to sit next to someone different, to consume a piece of art we didn't choose ourselves.
Exactly. So here is your challenge. The next time you plan a weekend out, maybe, just maybe, choose the one thing you have absolutely no context for.
Yes.
Choose the restaurant where you don't recognize a single ingredient. Walk into a room where you don't already know the rhythm.
Step out of your own algorithm. You
Right.
might just find a completely new language.
Until next time, keep exploring.